Torchwood. Outside the government, beyond the police. Doctor Who is no stranger to spin-offs, but Torchwood might just be its best one ever. Sorry, K9 and Company. It's cheesy yet adult, violent but also funny, but most of all, Torchwood was gay. Oh, you thought the revival had a homosexual agenda? Pfft, Rusty Davies hadn't shown you anything yet. Torchwood can be fairly described as a mixed bag. Some, sure, reek of CSI Cardiff with stupid or plain boring and edgy plots, paedophiles and sex clouds. Whilst others have proven to be genius pieces of sci-fi, tackling sociopathy, the meat trade, ego, immortality, as well as suicide, grief and true loss, like real loss. Torchwood is not afraid of boundaries. I think I'm going to surprise you today by just how excited I was to do this video and how much good I'll have to say about it. Because Torchwood goes to boundaries that Doctor Who wouldn't even dare touch. Explored by real, damaged humans. This team is the best thing and makes it one of the best shows I've ever seen. A show that can sometimes even rival Doctor Who. If I were to recommend Torchwood though, that doesn't mean every single episode is good. I'd consider watching the pilot, then skipping straight to season 2. It's weird like that, trust me.
Hey kid, did you miss me?
Apart from the odd exception, season 1 is a season of duds. Not many good episodes, and with such a huge, slow start, how can I still sing this show's praises? Because once Torchwood outgrows its immature phase, season 2 and 3 are some of the greatest TV I've ever seen. It's all too easy for the Doctor Who diehard to overlook or immediately dismiss Torchwood as the campy Captain Jack spin-off, but in some ways, I can honestly say that I end up preferring it to the majority of Doctor Who. And that's saying a lot. So, with that huge bombshell dropped, let's back it up with my favourite 5 Torchwood stories, in no particular order. I've been looking forward to this. Number 1, Captain Jack Harkness. Apart from a decent pilot, this late addition to the first series is also the only one you'd be stupid to miss. For a Captain Jack spin-off, there's one thing that this show does very little of. Explaining Captain Jack Harkness. What might shock newcomers is how different this iteration of Jack is. He's much more strict and straight-faced with a tragic history just waiting to leap out, rather than the usual double entendres you've come to expect. A good way to put it is that instead of focusing on the people Jack flirts with, we see the tragic side. Jack saying goodbye to those he's loved before in the past. And in that regard, it's very much the same character in a different part of his life. In this story, Jack and Tosh are trapped in the past in a World War II ballroom where they encounter Captain Jack Harkness, the man whose identity Jack stole on the very last day of his life. Well shit, the only single thing we knew about this character taken from us. The plot is almost non-existent. It's an episode driven by character alone. What would you do if you knew tonight was the last night of your life? The mutual understanding of these two brave, scared men is really something beautiful, which leads to something really surprising. A perfect, respectful, and underplayed portrayal of some man-on-man love. Of all shows, I wouldn't have imagined Torchwood would be the one subtle enough to do it respectfully. It's not sexy, it's not colourful, it's tragic. The pain of finding that mutual love and understanding on the very last day of your life. And this writing left an impression on me as a kid. Gay characters weren't just hypersexual, flamboyant comic relief anymore. Should I have been watching Torchwood at a young age? Probably not. Anyway, great TV. Fragments! Love Fragments. The penultimate episode of Season 2. Let's have some overdue origin stories. This is maybe the most important episode of the series as it ties together the timeline as well as the mysterious foundations of the Torchwood Institute. How Yanto, Tosh, Owen and most importantly Jack were all recruited. Yeah, this does come kinda late for an audience actually. And their origin stories aren't all exactly nice. There's so much nerd stuff to mine in this episode. The fallout of Canary Wharf, the turn of the Whoniverse millennium, how Jack got from the game station to the Victorian era Torchwood team. This is a must watch for Doctor Who fans. even if you don't plan on watching the rest of the series. We get to see Jack coming into finding his team murdered at the turn of the millennium, Toshiko, a unit prisoner for life, and the subtle suggestion that Jack killed Owen's wife? Yeah, it's never overtly stated, but there is a subtle hint that Jack formed his own team by force. It's one of the last episodes that makes you wonder how you watch the series without it. Oh yeah, there are Torchwood books. Like, a lot of them. Too many for one man. But Slow Decay, that's a good place to start. Slow Decay beat Doctor Who to the whole adipose gone bad idea, and instead of cute, lovely little action figures, turned into a dark, depraved, cannibalistic zombie story. The idea itself is pretty run-of-the-mill weekly, but it becomes great due to Andy Lane's pitch-perfect writing and understanding of these characters. Getting into the cast's heads makes you realise just how well you know these complicated people. Their dynamics are also layered that they feel real. They're fragile, complicated, real people, something you don't always get with Doctor Who. Just listening to Owen and Tosh trying to compete physics versus biology as competing worldviews makes you realise just how well you know these characters. You know exactly how they'll respond, and their voices are very, very vivid. These characters are more developed than any TARDIS team. Oh, and there's also an in-depth discussion had by the gang over the Scooby-Doo canon. Yeah, good stuff. Sci-fi isn't a genre that allows a lot of passion or sexuality into its themes, and that's why I get Torchwood. That's why Rusty Davies is a strange sort of camp genius. Slow Decay goes back into Gwen and Reese's relationship and basically who wants to fuck who, and it's a weird but real dive into vanity that leads to everyone turning into cannibalistic monsters, desperately gnawing their own bodies just to get sustenance. Yeah, Owen goes through a lot in this one. It's really kinda horrible and dark. Number 4, Children of Earth. Children of Earth is not only the best Torchwood story ever, but also one of the best pieces of TV I've seen. It's fast, real, heavy-hitting, and destroys Torchwood from the inside. It's a story where nothing is the same after, and nothing can ever be the same again. These are stakes that you wouldn't find in Doctor Who. Showing this to a friend who had no context and never seen the show before, there was screaming, there were tears, nobody is safe. The villains hit us where we live via our children, and Peter Capaldi kills it. And by it, I mean his family. I mean, that was just a straight up spoiler, but it's okay because this story is so littered with twists and turns and game changers at the end of every single one of its 5 episodes. Unanimously, I think the entire world knows and agrees that this is the best episode of Torchwood. People who had never seen the series were tuning in for this. It was mind-blowing. It's a sad, hopeless story where Torchwood are outgunned. The villain is a scheming government, and humanity is at its goddamn worst. Yeah, there's a reason the Doctor doesn't always save the day. David Tennant wasn't here when we needed him the most. Where were you? And finally, number 5, the genius, creepy, horror home invasion plot, Adam. A being called Adam infiltrates himself into the Torchwood crew and opening theme. Torchwood has had some scary episodes. Cannibals, body horror, demons, but the concept of a leech embedding itself into your life, friend circles and memories is awful. Implanting trauma into pure Yanto, effectively raping Tosh, this episode destroys our cast in a way that would fail if we didn't know these characters inside out. Adam is a goddamn parasite, but one who actually reveals Jack's backstory. A creepy, disturbing idea that makes for one of the best pieces of Torchwood. Me, I could rant about Torchwood all day. I love this show, but as you know, it's not always been good. We'll save that for next week.